Welcome back to our study of A Course in Miracles. I'm Danny Spendlove, and today we are in Chapter 3, Section 5, titled Beyond Perception. Paragraph 1. I have said that the abilities you possess are only shadows of your real strength, and that perception, which is inherently judgmental, was introduced only after the separation. No one has been sure of anything since. I have also made it clear that the resurrection was the means for the return to knowledge. So, if you recall, we went over again in the last section about how the atonement is not based on the crucifixion, it's based on the resurrection. And so, Christ reiterates here, I have also made it clear that the resurrection was the means of the return to knowledge, because technically, when we have true knowledge, there is no death. Death and sickness are miscreations that we made that don't technically exist because they don't come from God. Only things that come from God actually exist. So it is the resurrection that was the means for the return to knowledge, and the crucifixion has nothing to do with it. So the resurrection was the means for the return to knowledge, which was accomplished by the union of my will with the Father's. We can now establish a distinction that will clarify some of our subsequent statements. Paragraph 2. Since the separation, the words create and make have become confused. When you make something, you do so out of a specific sense of lack or need. Anything made for a specific purpose has no true generalizability. Say that word 5 times fast. And generalizability is something that it will explain in more depth later. So it's not going to go into it in this section, but just know that this will make sense later. It's another one of those things, I think, to get your mind questioning, like, wait, what does that even mean? And as you question, your mind opens to the answers. So just allow that to start rolling around in your brain. Like, what does it mean that things made for a specific purpose have no true generalizability? And therefore, they are being made and not created. Only things that are truly created have true generalizability. When you make something to fill a perceived lack, you are tacitly implying that you believe in separation, because it's only through separation that we think we are lacking anything. Before the separation, we had no needs of any kind. There was nothing lacking. The ego has invented many ingenious thought systems for this purpose. None of them is creative. Inventiveness is wasted effort, even in its most ingenious form. The highly specific nature of invention is not worthy of the abstract creativity of God's creations. Isn't that interesting? Because we put a lot of value in inventiveness, and we reward people who are good inventors, and think highly of them. Thomas Edison, Benjamin Franklin, Tesla, Da Vinci, he was a huge one. And we really respect them. And so to have A Course in Miracles say that inventiveness is wasted effort, even in its most ingenious form, the highly specific nature of invention is not worthy of the abstract creativity of God's creations. Inventiveness is beneath us. Which shows you how much we value the ego, right? Because the ego really values inventiveness. But if you think about it, anything we invent to fill a need or a lack, we don't actually lack anything. So I can kind of see that. But again, it's going to go more into this in a later section. So I'll stop spending time on it now. Paragraph 3. Knowing, as we have already observed, does not lead to doing. The confusion between your real creation and what you have made of yourself is so profound that it has become literally impossible for you to know anything. I just want to say that again. Listen to this one closely. The confusion between your real creation, so what you were actually created as, and what you have made of yourself is so profound that it has become literally impossible for you to know anything. You have dissociated so much from what you actually are that you can't know anything because you have created such an illusion of yourself. You are way too far from knowledge to be able to know anything. Knowledge is always stable, and it is quite evident that you are not. So, if you have considered yourself to be unstable, well, we're all right there with you. None of us are stable, apparently. Nevertheless, you are perfectly stable as God created you. In this sense, when your behavior is unstable, you are disagreeing with God's idea of your creation. You are disagreeing with God when your behavior is unstable. You're saying that you aren't stable, even though He knows that you are. So you're disagreeing with God. Wonder who's going to win that argument. You can do this if you choose, but you would hardly want to do it if you were in your right mind. Amen to that. Paragraph 4. The fundamental question you continually ask yourself cannot properly be directed to yourself at all. You keep asking what it is you are. This implies that the answer is not only one you know, but is also one that is up to you to supply. Yet you cannot perceive yourself correctly. So asking yourself what you are is a bad idea because you have no idea what you are because you cannot perceive yourself correctly. And as I'd already said, we are way below being able to know what we are. We are so unable to know anything that we can't know ourselves and we can't perceive ourselves correctly. You have no image to be perceived. The word image is always perception related and not a part of knowledge. This made me think about in the Bible, the creation story, it says we were made in God's image. And this is saying you have no image to be perceived. The word image is always perception related and not a part of knowledge. And we've talked about this before in the last section. Your body was created when you dissociated from knowledge. And so then you needed an instrument to be able to perceive with, which means you needed to be able to see and smell and taste and touch and hear. And then you can make perceptions based on that information coming in, and you can judge with that information. Knowledge, you just know. You don't need to see anything. You don't need to hear anything or touch anything. None of that is needed when you have knowledge. That is all perception based. So an image means that there's something to see, which means it's not a part of knowledge. It is a part of perception and is sub knowledge. It is below knowledge. So you, in your true created form, your spirit, there is no image to be perceived. God just knows you, and you just know God, and you know your fellow creations, your brothers and sisters. There is no image to be seen. Images are symbolic and stand for something else. So this idea that we were created in God's image does symbolize that God made us as He is. It doesn't literally mean that He has an image and we look like it. It's symbolic for as He is, He made you. And so this idea of being created in God's image can help correct our perception, but it cannot help us know God, because knowing has nothing to do with seeing an image or being an image. The idea of, quote, changing your image, close quote, recognizes the power of perception, but also implies that there is nothing stable to know. So you can see something, but it's not stable enough to know it. Paragraph 5. Knowing is not open to interpretation. Again, if you know it, you know it. There's no like, oh, I can interpret knowledge this way or interpret it a different way, and we can all have different interpretations of knowledge. No, if you know it, you know it. And it's not open to interpretation. You may try to interpret meaning, but this is always open to error because it refers to the perception of meaning. Such incongruities are the result of attempts to regard yourself as separated and unseparated at the same time. So, trying to interpret meaning. I'm assuming that means that meaning is associated with knowledge because you know what something means, you know it. And you're trying to interpret meaning, and we only have perception because we believe we're separated. So you're trying to be separated and unseparated at the same time if you're trying to interpret meaning. Sounds tiring. It is impossible to make so fundamental a confusion without increasing your overall confusion still further. Your mind may have become very ingenious, but as always happens when method and content are separated, it is utilized in a futile attempt to escape from an inescapable impasse. Ingenuity is totally divorced from knowledge, because knowledge does not require ingenuity. Ingenious thinking is not the truth that shall set you free, but you are free of the need to engage in it whenever you are willing to let it go. So I think what this is saying is that we use ingenious thinking to try and solve our problems and try and fill the lack that we perceive in our lives or in ourselves. And if we would be willing to let that go and just trust that Spirit will bring us answers and bring us the solutions to what we perceive are problems, and that we don't actually lack anything, it's already on its way and provided for us. Like, we can just choose to let that ingenious thinking go. That's our ego, our conscious mind, trying to figure out solutions instead of trusting and allowing that solutions are already provided. We don't have to figure that out. We can just allow them to come. And again, that doesn't mean like, oh, I just lay in bed and wait for food to show up and wait for my rent money or mortgage money or whatever. It's more saying, I believe that rather than trying to figure it out on your own, you just day by day, moment by moment, trust that you'll be inspired to do the things that need to be done to pay your bills and to feed your family and those things. You're not like working your brain overtime trying to figure it out on your own. Take no thought what you shall eat or what you shall drink, right? So I think it's along those lines, if that makes sense. Paragraph 6. Prayer is a way of asking for something. It is the medium of miracles. But the only meaningful prayer is for forgiveness, because those who have been forgiven have everything. Prayer is a way of asking for something. So if you're asking for something, it probably means that you perceive, again, that you are lacking, right? Or you wouldn't need to ask for anything. So it's still good. Prayer is good. We're not saying prayer is bad. It is the medium of miracles, and miracles are, this is a course in miracles. So prayer is good. But the only meaningful prayer is for forgiveness, because those who have been forgiven have everything. So if you can basically say, please forgive me for all these illusions, all these misperceptions I have that make me think I don't have what I need and that you're not going to provide what I need, that I'm not going to be inspired and led and guided to what I need. Please forgive me for that. And once you receive the forgiveness, because it's inevitable, but once you receive the forgiveness, you will realize you have everything and you don't need anything. Those who have been forgiven have everything. Once forgiveness has been accepted, prayer in the usual sense becomes utterly meaningless. The prayer for forgiveness is nothing more than a request that you may be able to recognize what you already have. The prayer for forgiveness is just a request that you be able to recognize what you already have. In electing perception instead of knowledge, you placed yourself in a position where you could resemble your Father only by perceiving miraculously. You have lost the knowledge that you yourself are a miracle of God. Creation is your source, and source is a capital S, and your only real function. Let's go over that one again. You have lost the knowledge that you yourself are a miracle of God. And remember, a miracle is an extension of love. So you are an extension of love of God. God was just extending love and it made you. Creation is your source and your only real function. And this reminded me in chapter 1, section 7, paragraph 2, at the very beginning, the very first line, first two lines. Child of God, you were created to create the good, the beautiful, and the holy. Do not forget this. Let's say that one just one more time. Child of God, you were created to create the good, the beautiful, and the holy. Do not forget this. Okay, so when it's saying here, creation is your source and your only real function, creation is what you were created to do. You were created to continue creating, which is so amazing to me. Paragraph 7. The statement, quote, God created man in his own image and likeness, close quote, needs reinterpretation, which we already kind of talked about. Image can be understood as thought, and likeness as of like quality. God did create spirit in his own thought and of a quality like to his own. There is nothing else. That is all God created. It's only through thought, because remember, all thought creates form at some level. So with his thoughts, he created us like himself, and that's all there is. There is nothing else. Perception, on the other hand, is impossible without a belief in more and less. At every level, it involves selectivity. Perception involves selectivity. Perception is a continual process of accepting and rejecting, organizing and reorganizing, shifting and changing. Evaluation is an essential part of perception because judgments are necessary in order to select. So perception is inherently judgmental, which is what it said at the very beginning. Perception, which is inherently judgmental, was introduced only after the separation. So two people can see the exact same event and have different perceptions of them based on how they judge and how they organize and reorganize and what they accept and what they reject and all those things. Paragraph 8. What happens to perceptions if there are no judgments and nothing but perfect equality? Perception becomes impossible. If everything's perfect, what would you perceive? If everything's equal, what is there to perceive? Truth can only be known. All of it is equally true, and knowing any part of it is to know all of it. So remember, we talked about this in the last section. You can't know just a piece of truth. You either know all of it or you technically know none of it. You can perceive correctly, so maybe you're perceiving it, but that's not knowing it, because once you know any particle of truth, you know all truth. So only perception involves partial awareness. Knowledge transcends the laws governing perception because partial knowledge is impossible. It is all one and has no separate parts. You who are really one with it need but know yourself, and your knowledge is complete. To know God's miracle is to know him. So if we just knew ourselves, truly knew ourselves, our knowledge would be complete because we would technically know everything. Paragraph 9. Forgiveness is the healing of the perception of separation. That's important. Forgiveness is the healing of the perception of separation. So once we truly forgive ourselves and receive the forgiveness of God, the Spirit, that is the healing of the perception of separation. That's when we can finally start to recognize that we have everything and start coming to knowledge. Correct perception of your brother is necessary because minds have chosen to see themselves as separate. Spirit knows God completely. And if you remember in our last section, that was like my favorite. It said, Spirit, which knows, could not be reconciled with this loss of power because it is incapable of darkness. So here it's saying Spirit knows God completely. And remember, your spirit can't settle for anything. Your spirit is not settling. It's your mind that has chosen to settle. Spirit knows God completely. That is its miraculous power. The fact that each one has this power completely is a condition entirely alien to the world's thinking. Every single one of us has this power, the power of knowing God. And that is completely alien to the world's thinking, which is so true. There would be no disparity in power if we believed this. The world believes that if anyone has everything, there is nothing left. But God's miracles, which are us, are as total as his thoughts because they are his thoughts. So every single one of us has everything. And in the world's view, if someone has everything, then everybody else has nothing. But we are each a part of everything. And so we all have it. And no one is left lacking or left out. Paragraph 10. As long as perception lasts, prayer has a place. Since perception rests on lack, those who perceive have not totally accepted the atonement and given themselves over to truth. Perception is based on a separated state, so that anyone who perceives at all needs healing. We will continue to need healing until we have knowledge. Communion, not prayer, is the natural state of those who know God. So remember, prayer is what we use while we're still perceiving, because we still think that we have lack. But communion is the natural state of those who know God. And it's actually going to talk more, like the whole chapter 15. Chapter 15 is completely about communion. It's called the Holy Instant, which is basically communion with God. So anyway, we're a fifth of the way there, but just know more on this is coming. God and his miracle are inseparable. God and you are inseparable. How beautiful indeed are the thoughts of God who live in his light. Your worth is beyond perception because it is beyond doubt. Your worth is beyond doubt. So it can't be perceived. It is knowledge. If you truly understood your worth, you would know yourself. It cannot be perceived. Do not perceive yourself in different lights. Know yourself in the one light, and one light is capitalized. Both those words are capitalized. Know yourself in the one light where the miracle that is you is perfectly clear. And that is the end of this section. I hope you loved it as much as I did. And I hope that you comment if there was something that really resonated with you or if you have questions. And I look forward to seeing you next time.